Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge led by Councilmember Roberto. The invocation led by Councilmember Roberto, followed by the pledge, which will be led by Boy Scout Troop 36, and we'll call you up after the invocation. So please, Councilmember Roberto, please lead us in the invocation, and then we'll follow with the pledge. Please rise as you're able.
Tonight we gather in a time when our faith needs your reassurance and your healing touch. We ask for your guidance as we seek to set aside our differences and work together. Lift up our community and lead us away from the ugliness of division and hate. Fill our hearts with the same love for our neighbors as we have for our own family and friends. Let your spirit move across our city and into our hearts as we turn towards your loving grace. Grant us wisdom and patience in our deliberations tonight, so that our actions may be worthy of your continued blessings. Amen.
Amen. And please, Boy Scouts, please come up onto the stage and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
Thank you so much. And now we'll proceed with the roll call.
Councilman Fugit.
Here.
Councilman Helsley.
Here.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Here. Councilwoman Parker.
Here.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Here.
Councilman Roberto.
Here.
Councilwoman Singh. Here. Vice Mayor Smith.
Here.
Councilman Thomas. Here. All members present, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on the minutes from our March 18th meeting?
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any items to be withdrawn from tonight's agenda? Are there any items to be postponed from tonight's agenda? Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. After speaking with the developer and the community, we'd like to postpone item 12H until the May 13th council meeting.
Okay, motion to postpone until May 13th, item 12H. It's been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this motion to postpone item 12H? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Any other items to be postponed? Okay, seeing none, are there any items to be added by motion? Okay. Is there a motion on items, the consent items, which is 11H through J and 12J and K, the 202s and certificates of compliance? Is there a motion on it? Okay. Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, time now for my mayor's report. It's been a day of celebrating some upcoming events. So spring event season is here, and Knoxville is on full display. All the gardens are in bloom. Last weekend, even if you didn't attend any events, downtown was filled with all the big ears, music and arts activities, and there was a pickle fest, and there was just a lot of fun things happening last weekend, and this weekend continues the festivities. It's marathon weekend, and we learned at the press conference for the marathon this morning that it's the largest number of registered runners since 2019. So it's good that we're back to the pre-COVID marathon participation numbers. There will be thousands of people in town for the races. There's several races and events Saturday night, and of course the marathon itself Sunday morning. Please be alert to several road closures, and community members, please allow extra time to get around. And hopefully, I know the neighbors will on the routes will all turn out and cheer on those runners. Every runner appreciates those people with the bells and just saying, keep going, you got this. It really makes a big difference. It's also the start of the month-long series of Dogwood Arts events. The Dogwood Arts is a wonderful tradition in our city. We just kicked off the trails. We opened those a few minutes ago. I was right before council meeting when you all had your presentation from the zoo. I was in the fabulous 4th District in the Holston Hills community where we opened up the trails, 90 miles of trails in 13 different neighborhoods. And so I appreciate all of the neighbors who fix up their beautiful gardens and all the city staff who paint the pink arrows and pick up the brush and help with all of these special events. One of my favorite parts of Dogwood is coming up this Saturday, Chalk Walk, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Market Square. You can learn more about this and all the events for Dogwood at dogwoodarts.com. And on a sadder note, I wanted to mention to everybody, I think council members are aware, but wanted everyone to join me in a moment of silence to honor former Councilwoman Brenda Palmer. She was a longtime teacher. She passed away last week and will be remembered as a hard worker, a strong leader, and a true champion for children and Knoxvillians all across the city. So if you could please join me for a moment of silence in honor of our colleague, Brenda Palmer. Thank you. A quick reminder about our rules of decorum. We are here to do the city's official business. Those who wish to speak, either to a specific agenda item or during public forum, need to sign up with the city recorder before 4 p.m. Do not use profanity, and when speaking to specific agenda items, you must stay on topic. Remarks must be germane to the question ahead of the assembly. That is, statements must have bearing on whether the pending motion should be adopted. Those who fail to adhere to these rules will be ruled out of order. For those who are listening, please note, if you disrupt a public meeting, you will be asked to leave or escorted out. Thank you in advance for everyone's respect for these rules. That concludes my mayor's report. And are there any reports from council members? Councilmember Helsley.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to provide a report tonight on Cat Reimagined, but I'm saving you from me because the director happens to be here on another item. So if Director Thorne is going to give us that report.
Okay, Director Thorne, if you could share it, and Councilmember Helsley is the chair of the Knoxville Transportation Authority, so thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Helsley. Just give a little background on Cat Reimagined. It was a 2+ year planning effort that we led to reimagine our bus network. So we gathered lots of feedback from the public stakeholders and our riders through public forums, also through ridership surveys. That culminated into our riders, the public, and stakeholders saying they wanted more increased frequency, more service. So we provided more 15 and 30-minute service on routes, and then we also increased service on weekends by 50%. That has led to a 20.8% increase in ridership year-to-date through February. We've had a 22% increase in ridership on weekends. Our on-time performance went from 76% before Cat Reimagined to now 85%. We're really, really close to hitting our goal of 90% on-time performance. And we're on pace to have the highest ridership in over 10 years at 2.8 million rides is where we're on pace to hit this year. So our riders have really responded positively to this. They're taking more trips, and we couldn't be happier. So,
Well
Councilmember?
done. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the update. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, just as a brief aside and then a recognition of a local business that does good work. People keep asking me where all my hair went, and I simply donated it to kids with cancer. And there's a group called Wigs for Kids out of Michigan that's a reputable group. And then a shout out to the Chop Shop Hair Studio in Happy Holler at 1206 North Central. If you donate your hair, they will donate their time, and they will harvest it all and do a small amount of paperwork and then send it off for you. And special shout out to Cindy Lou Douglas and Gaia Winston for providing this worthy and generous service. And that concludes my council report.
Thank you. I almost didn't recognize you, but good cause. Any other, Councilmember Singh?
Councilman Thomas, I am imagining a little kid with a gray ponytail right now.
Well, they will take gray hair. And you may see that little kid with a ponytail again.
I wanted to take a moment to honor Brenda Palmer also. She was my representative in the 3rd District from 2011 to 2017. And when I was running, she was a very good friend of somebody that was running against me. So we didn't really get close until I was on council for a while. But I learned a lot from her. She was always available. The reputation that she had, that I've heard over and over again, was that she studied her stuff. She knew what was in the package. She had been to the location. She was where everybody looked to. It's like, if I forgot to read something, I know she got it, kind of thing. So just some respect. She was also here at a time where it wasn't so female heavy. She's one of the earlier pioneers, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas?
Yeah, I will just add briefly to what Councilperson Singh said so well. When I was on council back in 2011, just as an appointment, Brenda Palmer sat right beside of me. And she was a real steady force to have at that time. She was really analytical. She totally was prepared all the time. And then after I got off from council, she and I continued to be friends. And she was a good model for what we all should aspire to be. And we'll miss her both on council and in the community.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights on, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you.
8A is a resolution confirming the appointments of Audrey Easton and Stacy Vidalia Pedalio to the City of Knoxville Public Arts Committee.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? No, I don't see any. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9A is an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Knoxville City Code, Article 1, Section 4-1, possession or consumption on certain property prohibited or restricted, Article 2, Section 4-76, temporary serving area, special area permits, and Section 4-77, special events permits related to the sale of beer on certain property to streamline the code, provide for consistency for event management and safety, and provide equitable opportunity for events to be held throughout the city.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, we have 2 people signed up to speak to this item, both in favor. First is Seth Barber. If you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Seth Barber, Rocky Hill. I'll be brief. I was here last time talking about it, and I appreciate all the energy and effort that all of you have put in to this. I mostly wanted to be here if there's any way I could help. But this is important to me for my particular project, but it's important to the city as a whole. It's a good way to spread out all the great things this city has. The mayor's report highlighted the number of events that went on this past weekend, those going on next weekend. My weekend, May 17th, we have a couple other events going on as well. Instead of having it all packed in downtown, we can spread it out and have a good time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak to item 9A is Ann Templeton.
Ms. Templeton wasn't able to make it down.
Okay,
Children.
got it. Okay, that concludes people signed up to speak to this item. Councilmember Ryder? Well, I don't know. You're the maker of the motion, or?
Well, I wasn't necessarily going to give a speech, but I'll give a couple of updates. Number one, Ms. Templeton was going to come and speak on behalf and as representative from the Makers Council, or the Makers Space that she is employed with. She reached out to me to ask about this ordinance and when it would be passed. They have an event that they are planning to reach out to special events about that would be in a potential different location. And involve some of our recent murals, if that would be approved. So should this ordinance pass, we might see something from them. They have an event planned. I did want to address a couple of questions that came up last time. There were some questions about the zoo and the fair and Chilhowie Park and SMG, and so I just wanted to clarify those. The zoo, used to do special events permits of sort, and they were done by a resolution of beer board. So they weren't voted on at council, they were voted on at beer board. Starting in 2013, they had their last special event permit. And then in 2014, they got their first on-off premise, and that is now held by Lancer, which is their concessionaire that they do their beverages through. And then the fair started getting on-off premise permits in 2015. And then they got an additional special permit that is issued by resolution by the beer board that gives a special arrangement for the beer sales that happen during the fair. And SMG also has their own on-off premise. So Mr. Bird and I went through all of these. He pulled out his files. We looked at them. The beer sales for the fair are part of their lease arrangement. And it is Exhibit A of their lease, and it is now attached to their on-off premise permit because it was not, and I made sure that happened. Also, I just want to say, yes, I did watch the old beer board meetings, got to see Brenda Palmer in action. I watched them, so none of you have to. So if you need a refresher, I did it. So that's all I have to say about that, and I'm happy to answer any questions that might come forward that we didn't discuss last time, if you have them.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank our Beer Board Chair for having those discussions and doing that research, and I really appreciate that, you know, all the folks that were mentioned in the old ordinance this is replacing have been talked about, have been talked to, and all that's been addressed, so I really do appreciate that. The only remaining questions I have really pertain to the special events beer permit, and I think Director Brewer can probably help me with that. If she's here, there she is.
Kendra Brewer, Director of Special Events with the city.
So when I'm looking through the special events beer permit, there's a reference to the special events permit process, which you and I talked about, you know, outside of the meeting, but it gives a couple of specifics about what that would look like having the event details, the specific geography to be included, right-of-way closures, server requirements, you know, things like that. So could you give us a little more, you know, detail about that process? Specifically, what I was looking for is, you know, is safety going to be one of those things you look at? Is, you know, traffic going to be something you're going to look at? Is capacity, given that there's a lot of other events going on? If you could just kind of go through that with us.
So we take each application that comes in, we review it. We sit down with the team once a month. The first thing that we look at, one, is how many other events we may have conflicting with that particular request for that particular day and time. We look at location, we look at kind of right-of-ways, we look at safety, businesses, residents. There's a lot that goes into the background of actually reviewing the application to make sure that the event will stay safe for all of those who participate.
Okay, and so that's a process that you've been doing for
Yes.
years. It's the same process you'd be doing with this, and you just be going through that basic checklist.
Absolutely.
And it does say that you have to do this 70 days before the proposed event, and that you have to get that special events permit before you even go to the beer board.
Correct. You actually have to apply for your special event permit 90 days in advance. So in that from that 90 days to that 70 days, that gives us time to be able to meet as a team, to look at the calendar, to kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we're able to accommodate them, and their event is going to be held in an area that's going to be conducive to what they want. So you just can't have one little side street and want to throw a full-blown festival. That has to make sure we see a site map, your traffic plan, where you may possibly park people. There's a lot that goes into it.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that kind of gets to the last part of my question, which is, since this, you know, ordinance change would make these festivals possible to do anywhere, including in residential districts, can you talk to me a little bit about what the process would be to notify neighbors if you checked all the boxes and you went through all that process and you were going to do this in a residential district? What would that notification process look like for the neighbors that might be affected?
If something was to be granted in a residential neighborhood, I'm going to use USA Cycling for an example. When USA Cycling was brought here by Visit Knoxville, they rode their bike through South Knoxville. Some of it was in a residential area. They actually went door to door. They knocked on the doors to tell the residents that this event was coming, what the time frame was. They put flyers in mailboxes. It's essentially what we do when we have an event that's downtown. We work with the downtown businesses. We let them know what event is coming. And then with the Downtown Business Association, they also send out emails stating when the event is, what the date is, parking, all the who's, what, when, all that information. The same would happen with an event that was to be in a residential area if it was approved. We would also work with the neighborhood association to get out to the associations.
So you would envision actually notifying anyone that was affected in the street and probably the neighborhood association, the neighborhood in its entirety, having some kind of process where, that's, I guess, published or something so people know what that looks like.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That really helps me understand better what's going on, and I feel really good about this, so I can go ahead and vote for it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just one question. I think I know the answer to this, but KPD Chief Newell has the same oversight of special events to check for underage consumption of alcohol that they do an on or off premise, or excuse me, an on-premise license, correct?
That would be my understanding, yes.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Frost, anything to add to that? No? Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ryder?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Ms. Brewer a couple of follow-up questions. Ms. Brewer, just for clarity, to follow up on Councilman Roberto's questions, when you guys have gone through the process of making sure the areas are notified, like you used the example of the USA Cycling going through the residential area, that did not include beer.
It did not.
Okay, and I just want to make sure, because you guys spend a lot of time combing and reviewing the various events. The second question I have, so this is another question. You guys you've probably had people come to you and say, hey, we want to do an event and it's whatever, without beer, because until this passed, they limited places they could do that. You have told people, no, sorry, you and or KPD have said in engineering, that's not going to work. You can't do whatever. You can't close these streets.
Yes, we have.
Okay. And the other thing is, just for clarity for everyone here to know, Mr. Barber is here, and I believe he had to pick, he's on his third date for the May 17th event. So capacity-wise, you also tell people, no, you can't do this because that event,
Correct.
that weekend is booked. And I know I got a question from somebody about, well, what if somebody beats like Rossini and gets their app turned in? But these are legacy events, some of the standing things that happen every single year.
Absolutely. Our legacy events always do get first priority.
Okay.
And then what comes in after we try to work with.
All right. And I guess the last thing I wanted to follow up with is, and I know Mr. Barber also went door to door and got everybody's approval and blessing. And I believe my understanding is he turned that in as part of his special events permit, because there was no beer process in the past for that as well.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Jones Locating Service to provide utility damage prevention and related services for city street lighting system in an amount not to exceed $150,000.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing Councilmember Ryder's light on, I'm calling you.
I'll ask one real quick question.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Claybo, how are the street lights going? Any updates? It's been 7-ish years since the city took over their street lights. Does that sound about right?
Mr. Claybo, yeah, come on up to the podium if that microphone's not working.
Tom Clebo, Engineering Director. It's They're going fine. We've got some outside help as far as contractors to help with repairs and maintenance. I think you'd mentioned 640. Actually was through there last, I guess, Sunday, and all the lights are on now, so that was good news. But yeah, there's 12,000 street lights, so it's a lot to maintain.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11B is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Superior Traffic Control LLC to provide special event flagging and traffic control services for the city's engineering department in an annual amount not to exceed $75,000.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with AWP Incorporated to provide special event flagging and traffic control services for the city's engineering department in an annual amount not to exceed $25,000.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Military Tennessee Emergency Management Agency for reimbursement of eligible expenses from the Federal Emergency Management Agency in the total amount of $844,386.13, with required matching funds in the amount of $120,626.58 for a project total of $965,012.71 for the July 7, 2023 severe storms, straight-line winds, and tornado events resulting in damages to the city.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11E is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to accept an extension of a grant from the Tennessee Department of Transportation providing funding in the amount of $724,611 to the city of Knoxville on behalf of Knoxville Area Transit from Improve Act Transit Investment Grant Funds with the city match of up to $241,538 for the improvement of several bus stops in our service area.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Thomas?
Yes, for all my constituents up in Inskip, this has a provision concerning some of the needs that I've been concerned about and that they have been very alert in telling me about, and we can pass that on to the engineering and CAT, specifically areas that needed added infrastructure on Bruin Road. There's two items just north of 640 near Inskip Pool. This agenda item will add a bus pad, seating, and new sidewalk improvements. And then on Bruin Road also, just south of 640, pedestrian walkway, a pad, and a bench. And this is an area that really does need this infrastructure. Again, I want to thank all my constituents for reaching out on me. I'll continue to be having conversations with Kat and Mr. Claybo with engineering on some further necessary improvements, I think, on that road there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11F is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any documents necessary to apply for and accept a Project Safe Neighborhoods grant from the Tennessee Office of Criminal Justice Programs in the amount of $53,136 with no required local match to be used in reducing gun crimes and gang activities.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11G is a resolution expressing appreciation to Downtown Knoxville Alliance for the donation of $75,000 to be used for the downtown compactor project and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to accept said donation.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, I just did have a question, just a general question of if you could tell me a little bit about what these compactors entail, and I guess kind of compacting 101. I just want to know kind of the system for doing it and how it would be done.
We've got our expert here. Please, thank you for being here.
Is this working? Okay. Mackenzie Reed, Waste and Resources Manager for the city. So the compactors are going to replace all of the over 700 carts downtown. They're all self-contained, so they should be cleaner. There will not be any noises associated with them. And we expect to have about 16 throughout the downtown area to replace those carts.
Okay. Do the compactors stay in place, or do they do their thing and then they're taken away, or?
They will take them away and then bring them back.
Okay, all right. Sounds like a great improvement. Thank you.
It will be, yes.
Okay, thanks.
It'll save time and money and just be more efficient all around, less and prettier, so, or less ugly. Anyways, I wouldn't say pretty, but yeah. Any other questions on item 11G? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Items 11H, I, and J were approved on consent. 12A is an ordinance appropriating the total sum of $1,500 from the Community Safety and Empowerment budget and donating same to TKJ Foundation in support of Camp 24, a community football camp and character development event in honor of Xavion Dobson.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those, Vice Mayor Smith?
When is it?
Ms. Middlebrook, do you know when it is?
I do not know off the top of my head. Ms. Norris is somewhere in the building. She can provide, hopefully, the details of the event.
Emily Norris, please come to the podium. Thank you.
Emily Norris, Empower Knox Initiative. It is in the summer. I think it's either June or July. It's listed on the agenda packet.
Thank you. I have a 9-year-old who's very interested in the date, so I'll reread the packet.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yes.
And we can share that information.
Absolutely. I can send that to you.
We can send that to you, Vice Mayor, and all of council, and Mr. Frost.
Thank you,
yes?
Mayor. July 12th at 9 a.m. until 1 p.m.
Thank you. I couldn't pull it up fast enough.
Thank you. Mr. Frost, any other questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12B is an ordinance appropriating the sum of $1,500 from the Community Safety and Empowerment budget and donating same to Genesee Charitable Birth Services in support of the Genesee Community Baby Shower to provide healthy eating resources and initiatives for youth and young mothers in attendance.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12C is an ordinance to close an unimproved and unnamed alley off the eastern side of Waverly Street and authorizing the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds to the adjacent property owners.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Ryder.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base maybe with Mr. Claybo. I kind of have a public service announcement statement. So I recently had somebody bring up that they found out that there was an alley on the books, on the maps for their property, and then they were trying to build a garage. And we now have in our ordinance, well, number one, you can build garages. Number two, people could do accessory dwelling units. And the ideal way for these people to access their garage would be through the alley, which it turns out I was able to go on the city ward map for them later on and find out it was closed. This alley, I just want to point, I seconded this and I'm voting in favor of this. I specifically went and looked at this alley closure to see how it impacted other people's property and access to their property. Because as people might build garages or other things on the back part of their property, closing alleys really limits access to get to those structures. And in the old parts of town, in some of our historic areas, we have traditionally, if no one complained and engineering didn't see a reason, the alleys just get closed and they get closed and they get closed. And we have taken away our abilities for a lot of people to access the back of their properties. And they now find out, now that they're like, oh, well, we came in and we wanted to build a garage. So, Mr. Clabo, I guess my question to you, I wanted to say that as a public service announcement, I think we really need to think hard when we close some of these alleys. And I noticed this one is beside this property, and that there is still an alley behind this property between the cemetery. That's another reason it doesn't matter to close this one. It just goes back to another alley that's along the cemetery. But what all do you guys look at when you're considering whether someone can close an alley or not?
So basically, when we're looking, especially with something like this, it's really, we'd call it a paper alley. It was, so there's no construction as far as access. We're looking to see, just like you were saying, will it impact any future development? What do the existing properties look like in that area? And do we need it for access? Typically, there's interaction with the adjacent property owners to see if there's any issues with the closure. And I think, as you're all aware, when these are closed, then we quit claim the city's interest to each property owner. So it's half the alley goes to one owner, half the other. So
Yeah. And then I had another one recently in my neighborhood where I don't know that had been quit claimed and it hadn't been closed, but it hadn't been maintained and it's used as a private driveway. It's a little complex. I reached out to Mr. Weth for assistance with that. But I guess my comment would be that a lot of these alleys are just paper alleys. Like I can think of various ones around that are strictly, they've never been paved, they've never been improved. But if people came and wanted to build rear access garages, that is how they would get to them. And as we updated and changed our zoning code that took effect in 2020, I think we need to revisit how we think about some of these alleys and how quick we are to close them, because there are parts of my neighborhood where people can no longer access their backyards because some previous owners asked to close the alleys, and the access is now gone away. And so there's just a period of time where people weren't investing in our inner city neighborhoods in the way that they are now. So they were not building garages that you'd want to get to, and now they are. And we've already given away a good portion of our alleys. So it's a loss we can't get back once somebody's built a fence upon it and crossed it off. So that's all. I just want to give you all a sermon about alleys and closures, and I have blessed this one, but I hope that we'll think long and hard about some of the ones in the future.
Amen. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12D is an ordinance to adopt the one-year plan dated 2025 as prepared by the Knox County Planning Commission for the City of Knoxville, all districts.
Move to approve.
Okay, motion made to approve. Is there a second? Seconded, okay. Council members, we have 5 people signed up to speak to this item, 2 in favor and 3 against. We'll start with those in favor. First is former City Council member Carleen Malone. Welcome back.
Thank you.
If you could state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Carleen Malone, 6051 Fountain Road. I'm sorry, I'm having allergy problems. The Planning Commission staff's recommendation to amend the one-year plan relies in part on the provision of the zoning ordinance that sets out standards for the new construction of duplexes. Unfortunately, that provision does not set out standards for the conversion of single-family homes to duplexes. What the one-year plan amendment does is expand the area in the city where duplexes can be located. That's its intent, and that's what it does. That's not the issue. The issue is, unfortunately, we don't have standards for the conversion of a single-family home to a duplex. We think that's important. And we think the logic that the professional staff puts forward applies to conversions just as it applies to new duplexes. And that is, in both their reports, the professional staff states that design criteria for new construction, as presently stated in our zoning ordinance, enables the duplex to fit into the neighborhood pattern. We think that's true, and we think that logic applies to conversions of single-family homes to duplexes as well. So what I'm asking is that council take whatever steps are necessary to amend our zoning ordinance, to include in it design criteria for the conversion of single-family homes to duplexes, and ask that that be done as quickly as possible. Again, we think it's important that these that conversions also fit into the neighborhood, just as new duplexes would be fit into the neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in favor is Drew Harper. Mr. Harper, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Hi, I'm Drew Harper from 4318 Washington Pike, number 101. I am Vice President of Yes Knoxville. We advocate for better housing options, better transportation options, better community spaces. I am largely recycling this speech from when I gave it at the Planning Commission, but most of you were not there, so anybody that was, I apologize. I strongly support the adoption of the updated one-year plan that would ease the regulatory burdens in some parts of the city that mandate that only single-family detached homes can be built. Allowing more flexibility in land use gives more agency to property owners, more housing options to current and future Knoxville residents. It encourages infill home building on empty lots and discourages sprawling development into rural areas. We know that the absolute least efficient form of housing in terms of carbon emissions per person are single-family standalone homes. This revised plan, therefore, is a very incremental step toward better environmental stewardship. Some of you, many of you, might know that I ran for Knox County Property Assessor. I'm very proud to say that I got second place. From a fiscal responsibility perspective, we know that the absolute least economically efficient form of housing in terms of property tax revenue collected divided by taxpayer-funded services used is single-family standalone homes. This proposed amendment is a minor change, a very minor change that will allow more flexibility as we work together as a community to address our housing shortage. Incremental change like this will not solve all of our problems. We know this, but it will certainly make a dent. Fiercely sticking to the status quo will only exacerbate unaffordability, environmental damage, and budgetary unsustainability. I love Knoxville. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that moving to this city for college gave me, both economically and socially, and I want to do everything that I can to bring more people into that circle, to have the same opportunities that I had 13 years ago and that all of us have had. Additionally, just want to, real quick, I'm to the point that the speaker before me made, it's nice when buildings look nice, and we want buildings to look nice, but those are building code questions, and that was even stated, right? Zoning code, building code, and this matter before us is the one-year plan, which are different. So for health, for climate, for affordability, for welcoming new neighbors, for balanced budgets, and for increased property rights, we encourage this council to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving to the people signed up to speak in opposition to item 12D. First is Joyce Feld. Ms. Feld, if you could Come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Joyce Feld. I live at 1540 Aguila Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. I'm here tonight as president of Scenic Knoxville. So Scenic Knoxville believes that it's imperative to incorporate design standards in the regulations for converted duplexes. We do not think that this amendment should take effect until associated design standards have been codified. Design standards protect existing property values, they preserve architectural integrity, and they promote the aesthetics and stability of a neighborhood. Design standards are what make a house a home that someone is proud to live in. They enhance the well-being and the quality of life for all residents. Scenic Knoxville was delighted when a robust set of design standards was included in the missing middle housing ordinance. The ordinance states, and I quote, "These design criteria help to ensure duplexes fit into surrounding neighborhoods," close quote. In the end, a duplex is a duplex, and we should not have a different set of standards for new versus converted duplexes. At the Planning Commission meeting, some commissioners asked why we need standards for duplexes when we don't have them for single-family homes. In fact, there were design standards for single-family homes in early drafts of RECODE, and we would encourage council to revisit this topic. Scenic Knoxville understands that we have a serious housing shortage, and we respect the steps that the city has taken to mitigate this shortage. However, we have to maintain a balance between additional housing and protecting and maintaining existing neighborhoods, as well as the people who will live in this housing. Everyone, no matter where they live or what their socioeconomic status is, deserves to live somewhere that they're proud of. Design standards do not exclude the construction of affordable housing. To the contrary, they assure that the housing will be accepted and embraced by the neighborhood where it is located. We know that there's considerable opposition to this amendment, and we think that requiring design standards so residents know that converted duplexes will blend into their neighborhoods will go a long way towards dampening this opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person signed up is Leland Hume. Mr. Hume? You could start by saying your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to council on the issue of the proposed amendment to the one-year plan. Again, my name is Lee Hume. I live at 6902 Haverhill Drive, Knoxville, 37909. I come before you today to ask in accordance, but first, let me digress for a second and just simply say, from a personal perspective, I have no objection to people who rent duplexes, apartments, anything else. Until I was age 34, I grew up in rental properties. My family rented properties because we moved frequently because of my father's job. And so finally, at the age of 34, we were starting a new family. We made the leap, and the economic circumstances were pretty amazing back then. The interest rates were in the teens. We thought we were fortunate to be able to buy a house with a 9.5% interest rate. We thought, boy, what a deal. But we were thrilled. We made the leap. And I don't think that I'm anything different than anybody else who is of that age or at any age who aspires to have a home of their own. And home ownership, we think, is very important. And we hope that you, as members of City Council and representing people across the city, appreciate the value of the leap that people take to become a homeowner. So with that in mind, let me get straight to my prepared remarks. I come before you today to ask in accordance with the city charter that you approve the one-year plan. However, without the proposed amendment to remove the location standard for new duplexes under the location criteria section in Chapter 2, Development Policy. The objection to remove the existing location standards are as follows. Planning Commission at their January 9th, 2025 meeting requested that the planning staff review one section of the one-year plan which involves the location standards. Over the past 81 days since Planning Commission requested staff to review the location standards for duplexes, the public has had very little awareness of the proposed change and has had minimal notification that this is happening. As one of a growing number of Knoxvillians who is aware of what is being considered, I ask that you consider the following points as you weigh the pros and cons of your ultimate decision. Removal of the location standard for duplexes creates uncertainty. The location standards for duplexes have been in place since 1982. There are a tangible, specific list of 8 distinct criteria. They can easily be found on the city ordinance webpage and benefit both the prospective developers and residents. In recent assessment of Knoxville residential properties, less than 50% of homes are owned by the occupants. With construction of hundreds, if not thousands, of new apartments and multi-unit structures across Knoxville about to come online, the percentage of renters will continue to outpace home ownership. According to the 3-year-old document, the 2022 Missing Middle Housing Scan, on page 8, the table labeled Population Characteristics shows only 46.9% of Knoxvillians are homeowners. 53.1% are renters. On the same page of that document, in the table labeled Housing Types Existing, 53.6% are single unit detached. 2.6% are duplexes. The remaining 43.8% are multi-unit housing. A concern of our neighbors and friends across Knoxville is the effort by planning and council to incentivize housing at a breakneck pace that we perceive since the end of COVID. Observing reactions of the two primary governing bodies, it appears the approach to the challenge of projected growth is one of a sense of compassion and a dose of creativity. The public's expectation of planning and city council is an in-depth exploration of challenges, a long-range perspective on potential strain on infrastructure and services, and understanding the long-term impacts on quality of life. To approve the one-year plan with the proposed amendment will negatively impact homeowners and the market for prospective buyers. Removing conditions to allow new dual-unit structures, duplexes, and
Mr.
primarily...
Hume, that concludes your 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'm just about finished. I only have just a very little bit left, please.
Well, Mr. Hume, I'm sorry. We're trying to treat everybody fairly. You had 5 minutes. I
Very
think
well.
if council has further questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next person signed up to speak to this item is Danny Kirby. Mr. Kirby? You
Danny
can start by
Kirby.
stating your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
6332 Baum Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. Just to be clear, I'm not sure if I'm for or against. Will said you've got to pick a choice between against or opposition, or for or opposition. I said opposition because I think you'll see why after I make my comments. Considering the one-year plans on tonight's agenda, I think it might be appropriate time to remind everyone what the City of Knoxville Charter says about planning in Knoxville. Article 801A says the mayor shall have the Metropolitan Planning Commission prepare and maintain 5- and 15-year comprehensive development plans of the City of Knoxville to be used as a guide for the growth and development of the city. So as a reminder, you don't have 5- and 15-year development plans, you have sector plans, they have 5- and 15-year recommendations within those, and some of those sector plans are 15 years old. Article 801A also says, in addition, the mayor shall have the Metropolitan Planning Commission prepare a one-year development plan which delineates the city's proposed land use development pattern for a succeeding 12-month period and is based upon the development goals and objectives specified in the city's 5-year development plan. Again, the city doesn't have 5-year development plans, much less one that's updated on its goals and objectives. Article 801B1 says the 15- and 5-year plans updated annually shall be submitted to the council before its second regular meeting in January of each year. After conducting public hearings on such plans, the council shall adopt the plans after making any amendments or revisions council considers appropriate by not later than the first regular council meeting in March of the year. I've checked the meetings for this year, last year, the year before, for January through February. There's not been any 5 or 15-year development plans that's come before council. In fact, some of the current sector plans still reference old zoning designations. But you all know this, right? So planning's applied for a grant, a HUD Pro grant, to specifically update the comprehensive plans. So here's what that application says. Within our community, there is a need to address the misalignment of our regulatory and policy documents. While the city and county have separate plans and codes, they share the struggle of operating with one recently updated component of the framework alongside one piece that is extremely outdated. The city updated its zoning code in 2020 and is in need of an updated comprehensive plan. So how did we get this extremely outdated comprehensive plan when the charter clearly lays out the map of how these plans are to be updated annually? Let's see what the application says further. When talking about potential roadblocks, it says the most likely obstacles to implementation of our proposal include resident concerns related to loss of neighborhood character and insufficient infrastructure, as well as lack of capacity within the development community to embrace the housing mix needed to address our challenges. Goes on to say, engaging in long-range planning processes to update our plans and codes will provide opportunities to reach a greater range of people and perspectives. Monthly rezoning and plan amendment processes provide a short window to provide input favoring individuals with time and financial resources who are often resistant to new development. Providing input opportunities during the formative stages of these regulatory documents ensures that a wider range of voices are considered. So by ignoring the planning process, you've basically disenfranchised the people that you're trying to help the most. That's the opportunity for folks to come in and talk about the need for different types of housing in neighborhoods. And you wouldn't have to have this kind of constant battle going on with neighborhoods and this duplex situation. So to recap, you haven't updated the plans per the charter. You've admitted that your plans are outdated. You admit that the lack of planning hurts lower income people. And the bottom line is that you don't have a valid 5-year plan that's supposed to be the basis for your 1-year plan. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, that concludes the people who signed up to speak on item 12D. Council Member Roberta.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got some questions for Director Brooks. As I read through this, I think basically what I'm seeing, the only amendment to the 1-year plan is the removal of the location standards for duplexes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And basically what that does is it's going to say that you can now develop duplexes in the inside of neighborhoods as opposed to more on the periphery. Is that basically a good summation?
It opens up that opportunity. As you know, in the RN1 and RN2 zones, it still requires a special use process. So there's not a guarantee specifically.
But I'm just kind of getting at the location of where you're going to see the duplexes now. I understand the process, but we're really talking about expanding where that footprint could be. And so we heard some of the conversation about design standards with regard to conversions. So we have design standards within the missing middle for conversions. We have design standards for new construction of a duplex, anywhere. But is it correct that we do not have design standards for conversions outside of the missing middle?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you feel like design standards are needed for conversions?
I will say, because this came up during our conversations at Planning Commission, both planning staff and city staff took a look at this, took a look at the principal use standards for 2-family homes in the code, and agreed that, adding conversions of existing structures to the requirement is an equitable way to handle those principal use standards for duplexes. So it would include conversions and new construction. Yes, so.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Thank you. So if council was to adopt design standards for conversions into duplexes, could that change be made relatively simply just by changing some language where right now it says only in new construction, but we would include existing structure conversions? Would that be something we could do pretty easily?
Yes, that would be a fairly simple process. It would have to go to the planning commission, but the amendment would be fairly minor.
And just for those following along, that would be section 9.3, which is not what we're talking about today. This is about the one-year plan, but that amendment would be in 9.3, principal use standards under subsection J, dwelling two family. And so we could just add in that language pretty simply there. Is that something that you feel like you could recommend to staff and maybe bring to Planning Commission and thereafter bring to council for an adoption of a change to the ordinance where we would have design standards for conversions?
Yes, I think that's a reasonable request.
Okay. And just thinking about timing for that, I know you and I have had these conversations for several months now, but I don't think you're going to be making the April meeting. And I think you probably could shoot for maybe having the May meeting where you would make it to planning for these changes, which would then make it come to council in June. Does that sound like a realistic schedule that you feel like you could meet?
Yes, we could meet the noticing requirements for the May meeting.
Okay. And so is that something that council could ask for you to do tonight, and you feel confident that you could bring it to us so we could vote on these changes by June?
Yes, it's all dependent on Planning Commission's recommendation, but yes, we could take it to Planning Commission for their consideration.
Okay. And you've got other items that you're going to be talking about maybe in the same area that you could couple this into that you're already planning on moving into May. Is that true?
I believe so. There's a little more vetting that needs to happen of those between city staff and planning staff. So I don't know that we would couple those together, but they might be able to run in tandem. This would be a standalone item.
I guess my preference would be that it would be coupled with other things that you're bringing just for efficiency. But what I was going to suggest then is I don't feel like we should approve the removal of the location standards without adding in design standards. So I'd like to propose an amendment to the ordinance that we have in front of us. So after the whereases in section 4, where it says right now, this ordinance shall take effect 17 days from and after its passage, the welfare of the city requiring it. I'd like to make a motion to amend that to read, the location standards for duplexes found on page 29 and 30 of the 2024 adopted one-year plan shall remain operative and effective until July 1st, 2025, and thereafter expire. The remainder of this ordinance shall take effect 17 days from and after its passage, the welfare of the city requiring it.
Okay, the motion to amend has been made by Councilman Roberto, seconded by Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Ryder, questions on the amendment or discussion?
The amendment. No, I don't have a question on, well, I could have a question on the amendment, and then I
Okay.
could have other questions when we're
Well,
past that.
I think we have the amendment is what's before us right now,
And
so.
the amendment is about the date, so I can only ask questions about the date?
Well-
Or am I talking about
The substance of the amendment is you know,
design standards?
Well, let me try to help clarify. So what the amendment does is it gives planning commission time, or planning staff time to bring these design standards to planning commission, then back to us in time for when all this goes into effect. We also have design standards for conversions at the same time as the location standards expire. So the idea and the intent is to give them time because they can't get them done before July 1st.
Okay. I have no questions about the time, if that's what you're asking, so.
Do you want to speak to whether you think the amendment, the amendment itself?
I'm willing to support the amendment if that's what you'd like to me to speak on. I can have a question for Ms. Brooks that, I'll just-
Councilmember Fugit, do you have a
Yes.
discussion on the amendment? Go
Yes, I
ahead.
do. Thank you, Mayor. I have questions about the amendment. My questions, the amendment, do not necessarily mean I support the one-year plan taking the location standards out. But what I really don't support is approving it without the purpose that you're trying to do. So you've given a specified date. I would feel better about your amendment if I even choose to support the whole thing, if it did not take effect until 7 days, 17 days, whatever it was you said, after we finally approve it. And that may or may not happen in July. So I'm just saying, I can't support the amendment with a definitive date. And if I hear that then that's a.
It looks like Mr. Frost has some clarification.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure that that's going to help my feelings.
And Mr. Swanson can feel free to chime in, of course. Section 801B of the charter sets a deadline, basically by not later than the first regular meeting in May of each year. So what Councilmember Roberto is trying to do is trying to comply with that date and then bring back in after Planning Commission and staff and Planning Commission have made their recommendation.
Right. What my point is, when he wants it to become effective, is he's got a date in there, July. So my point is, if you approve the plan and make it subject to, look, we got lots of lawyers up here, so, and I'm not one, I play one. But my thought is, if it is so important that it not take effect until the design guidelines are approved and in place and in code, then why would we say it has to be done in July when they may or may not get to it? My point is, if the amendment said would not take effect until 17 days after approval, whenever approval was. That's my question. That's why I'm asking you about that amendment.
I think it's a great question.
I'm sure there's a legal reason.
I am not sure whether we can do that or not, and so I think that's a question for Mr. Swanson and Mr. Frost. I would welcome that as a friendly amendment because I think it clarifies that council wants this to happen. And so if that was a possible amendment, if we could come up with some language that works for that, then I would accept it.
That's why I'm asking the
I'm just not
question.
sure if we can do that.
Okay.
But I think what I was trying to establish with Director Brooks is that we can count on Director Brooks and staff recommending this change, working diligently to get it to us in time so that we can vote on it in July. And I think that message we make tonight would be sent to our planning commissioners that we want to see this before that date. So if there is a way to do it, I know the legal minds are talking if they can do that or not.
Yes.
But I would welcome such a thing. But in the event that we can't do that, then I think we have to come up with some date. And I'm a member, I could see us amending that date to something else if you feel more comfortable with it.
Well, I mean, because there's no guarantee Planning Commission will approve. But anyhow, you get my point.
Councilmember.
But it sounds to me like we don't have an answer yet.
Councilmember Parker?
Well, first I wanted to clarify, and then I wanted to propose. But we heard from Mr. Frost that there's a May 1st deadline that we're also trying to take into consideration. That is a requirement for?
First regular meeting in May, whichever
Okay,
date that
first
might be.
regular meeting in May. We have to adopt this plan. But we have more time on the amendment. My question was, can we divide the question? Is there a way to approve the plan, but to pull out the proposed amendments for consideration and not vote on them tonight?
That's the only change.
Yes.
Well, the motion that is on the floor right now is something that Councilman Roberto said, which I can't repeat. But I do think that, I mean, Director Brooks is right here, and, you know, I think if council and the mayor and everybody, we all give direction to the director to consider this and have an, you know, effective date of July 1st, and she's nodding that she can do this, and then bring it to the staff and bring it to Planning Commission. Like, you know, I don't see any sign of, you know, that wouldn't happen. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the form, it can be in the record of the discussion of this council, and I think it would happen, right, Director Brooks? I mean.
Well, I just agree with my colleague that it feels a bit improper because there's always a possibility that it doesn't happen. And now we have approved this, you know, assuming that these standards will be in place. But there's always a possibility that does not happen. So making a decision tonight that captures our intent rather than simply a date when something might happen, I do agree with that. And I think it might be messier to divide the question, but it's an option.
Well, if Councilmember Parker, to answer your question, let me pose a question, which would be, and this would go, maybe that is a better strategy here. Mr. Frost, if we made a motion to accept the one-year plan without the changes, removing the location standards, could council come back anytime that we did get design standards for conversions and then amend the one-year plan at that point?
I think you could, but I think I might have an idea that perhaps would satisfy both you and Councilmember Parker. If you, generally council's heard on occasion of the 120-day rule. And Mr. Swanson and I had a little bit of a conversation. We didn't come to a conclusion. Instead of possibly the July 1st date, that City Council shall consider the amendments offered by planning within 120 days of when they were, you know, passed by planning, or within 120 days of the final decision of the Knox County Planning Commission public hearing. No,
That was the clarification?
No, the clarification, no, that's,
I mean.
legalese.
Okay.
No, it would be within 120 days of after it was passed by Planning Commission.
Okay.
And then that takes care of your concern, I think, of a date might not be able to be met and then potentially coming back and amending something later.
And I would accept that language as a friendly amendment, but what I understood you say, Mr. Frost, is that we're removing the date certain, and we're saying that council will take care of this within 120 days of design standards for conversions coming to council. Is that fair?
Right, that's correct. You're putting a fuse on this rather than, that gives some flexibility that could reflect a potential hiccup at the Planning Commission. And then council would, after it's taken care of at Planning, council will then have 120 days.
Okay.
Mr. Swanson, did you?
I just need to ask a question here. What you're saying is that his amendment would remain the same, except you would change July 1, 2025 to 120 days after the matter comes from MPC. Who is heard on public hearing at MPC. Yeah, you could do that.
And I would accept that as a friendly amendment. So I'll make a motion to change the motion to reflect the 120 days.
Can we hear the motion?
Okay, Mr. Roberto, maybe while we listen to the comments of your colleagues, you can put that in a writing so we understand what everyone's voting on. Councilmember Singh and then Vice Mayor Smith.
There was a comment made, I support your amendment. I support it as it is presented to us today, but I would vote in favor of your amendment as well. But that we move at breakneck speed to provide housing. And this is just another delay that all of this adds up over time. That's my only hesitation about the amendment.
Okay, Vice Mayor Smith?
I'll pause slowly to allow.
Well, I can go to
I still have a question.
Councilmember Ryder, and we'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
I got loads of questions.
Okay.
They go all over the place. Yeah, that's why I keep trying to parse. Okay, Mr. Frost, so basically we're voting, your solution or the friendly amendment is that we're voting on first reading and we're slow walking to second amendment? I'm so sorry.
No, it would be, the bulk of it would be proceeding tonight on first reading and then second reading at the next council meeting. There's a side part of it that Director Brooks and the planning staff would be discussing and then coming back to council at a later date.
Okay. Does the planning commission have to re-vote on, so we're in essence removing the duplex location criteria? That's what I am interpreting what you're saying. Okay. You're doing some legal magic to make it so we can vote on this tonight and somehow hold it up floating in the air until we have design standards. I'm sorry, that's my best.
You're not floating the whole one-year plan. You're passing all the one-year plan, except for those standards. And you're holding off on those until 120 days after public hearing before the Planning Commission of the new version.
Of design standards?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Sorry if I may.
no, please, we need a lot of interpreters here.
But they automatically happen at that time as opposed to needing to be passed by us, right? It's just delaying the actualization.
They're gonna come back to council.
Okay. So it's
I've
not
got
just-
the language
Okay.
now.
Because we have members of this body that don't want to, will support it if they have design
I
standards,
understand, yes.
but won't if they don't have design standards.
Maybe we'll let Councilmember
Okay.
Roberto give it a shot here.
I'll give it a shot. There's no legal magic, it's just written language, so. But I also wanted to mention that with Councilmember Singh's comment, I actually think this helps more speed things up, because I think there was a desire from Planning Commission as well as from staff to make these changes, knowing that the path to get that done, because we want to see design standards, knowing that they have to do that, I think might speed things up. So I actually think it's a pretty good approach for trying to do things fast. But do you want me to read the motion? So the amended motion would read, the location standards for duplexes found on page 29 and 30 of the 2024 adopted one-year plan shall remain operative and effective until 120 days following public hearing and planning commission of design standards for conversions of duplexes and thereafter expire. The remainder of this ordinance shall take effect 17 days from and after its passage, the welfare of the city requiring it. So what that's saying, as I interpret it, is that Planning Commission will bring design standards. We then have 120 days to consider it, which Mr. Frost said, that's the amount of time we have on a time limit anyway, so we would have to take care of it at that point. Is that more clear now? Sort of? We're getting there? Okay. Well, we're making progress.
Except the 120 days runs from the public hearing at the Planning Commission, doesn't run from when it comes here. Just so everybody understands that.
So Councilman Roberto, you're thinking this is a more efficient use of time because, so that we can get it all done kind of overlapping rather than somebody coming back and saying, no, I want different design standards or won't approve it this way?
I've already kind of worked on a solution with Director Brooks, which is adding 1, 2, 3, 4 words to 9.3J, which I'm just going to confuse everybody if I get into that part there. But so I think we already have very simple language that's going to work. Really, you know, for anyone that's confused about what we're talking about with design standards, what we're talking about here is having the same design standards for new construction as would be for conversions. It's the exact same model. That's all we're doing. And if you're thinking about driving through your neighborhood, what we're really talking about is that you don't drive by a rear-facing house. So you've got, you know, house, porch, front door, you know, facing the street. You drive by blank wall. And that's what we're talking about, is making sure we have, everything is looking like the neighborhood.
If you don't mind me responding to that, with all due respect, I feel that we are so much more concerned about how things look than having shelter. Not only, I mean, so I drive by a weird-looking house that houses people. And I know that's a whole different topic, but that's where, that's why I was saying I will vote for the amendment, but I would rather do it without including the conversion design standards. That's where I was coming from.
Okay, Councilmember Ryder and then Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, okay, so we're still talking about this amendment, but I think we're also talking about design standards because you just clarified them. Or you want us to vote on the amendment and move forward?
If council members want to vote on the
Okay.
amendment and then back on the motion as amended?
I'm gonna support the amendment because I think no harm, no foul. But then in the discussion, I want to talk about,
Well, why don't we vote on the amendment and I'll
Okay.
come back to you. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, does everyone understand what the amendment is? Okay, all those in favor of this amendment, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the amendment passes. Now we're back to discussion of the motion as amended. Councilmember Ryder.
Yeah, okay. Now we can talk unchained. Okay. Sorry, delirious.
Please follow the rules of decorum.
Okay, I'll try. I see a lot of perspectives here, and one thing that came from watching the Planning Commission meeting was one of the commissioners talked about how there are, and if you look at section, let me find the right cities code I got up here, Article 9.3, the design principal use standards in section J is dwelling two-family. And there's also design standards for townhouses and many other things, and there's design standards for just sundry things. The one thing that we're leaving off the table is single-family housing. And before anybody gets upset and thinks I'm saying, whoa, she wants to put historic North Knoxville's design standards on everything. That's not at all what I'm saying. You know, this conversation about two-family is we're trying to treat it differently than one family. And I want to get to that in a second. I'm probably going to need more pass to have some questions with Ms. Brooks. But, you know, for example, in the design standards so the commissioner made the point that we have design standards in many of the commercial zones. We have design standards all over, and they're quite simplistic. And I guess I don't feel comfortable saying, oh, it's only the two families that need to be added to the list, whether they're new or the conversion or whatever. Because, for example, I drove by a house today in East Knoxville that had been clearly flipped. And one of the standards here is front-loaded attached garages are limited to a width of the front building facade line or 24 feet, yada, yada, whichever is greater. People do horrible things to single-family houses, too, in flips. I'm sorry, and no offense to anyone out there that's done it, but I don't like it. And it doesn't look at all. It's a neighborhood with houses full of porches and front doors, and they've turned the entire front of the house into a garage with the door to the side facing the street. So I just don't see the necessity in treating duplexes so much differently than single-family houses when you can do egregious things to a single-family house. And that point was made by multiple people at the Planning Commission. So You know, it's not about whether things are pretty. You can have standards and say you got to have windows and you got to have doors, and it could still be unattractive. And that is subjective, because you may not like my house and I may not like your house, and vice versa all around the room. So, Ms. Brooks, real quick, in my few minutes left on this pass, I think I want to ask a couple of questions about the missing middle housing, just to get some clarity. In the missing middle housing report, which has been, we've had missing middle housing for 13 months, I believe, and council recently got a report on that. And there were, I believe in the report, 5 applications to do a conversion of existing structures. Were any of those for single-family houses to be converted to something more? I already know the answer, but I want you to answer it.
Those were after-the-fact conversions.
So
Request.
not one single person in 13 months is asked to convert a single-family house to a multiplex or a duplex or anything.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted that clear, and I think everybody needs to know. So the door's been wide open, and it hasn't happened for a single-family house. I had a lengthy conversation with Ms. Lenoy today, hopefully Lindsay, I hope I pronounced that correctly. So what I understand from her, and she gave me all the addresses because I wanted more than what the report gave. I'm like, where are these structures? What are their stories? And they are things that were already subdivided with no permits in the past when anything went in my neighborhoods. Most of these, a lot of these addresses are 4th, 6th, 5th district. And it's the older neighborhoods, and nobody wanted to live in our neighborhoods, and they moved to the suburbs, and people started chopping things up because the properties were worthless. Facts, guys, facts. My house was left for dead. And so multiples of these, and I believe Mr. Rosenberg, multiples of these have applied for permits because they got approved by missing middle housing to, you know, kind of rectify their past grievance of converting a single family into whatever hodgepodge. And then when they got to you guys at the building permits, very few of the 5 have moved beyond that. And why is that? That they don't go any further. These are conversions. I just think this is important conversation.
So there's several challenges with converting from single family to a duplex. Aside from creating separate kitchens and bathrooms, egress is the big one, and then the other biggest one is the fire separation.
So what happens in fire separation for people who haven't built? Where's it got to go? From the baseboard to the ceiling? Where's it
So
going?
if the units are side by side, it's from the foundation all the way to the roof structure, and then
So you
if
got to go
they're-
in the crawl space
correct,
or
it's
in
structural
below the
structural improvements. And if
Okay.
they're top and bottom, if it's the entire
Okay.
floor.
And what about up to the ceiling? Where does it go beyond the ceiling? This fire separation? My time is up. It's up
Yeah,
to
all the
you
way
now.
through.
To the roof.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Ryder, we'll come back to you after
Okay.
we've let your colleagues speak. Vice Mayor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilwoman Singh's comments about the urgency required for housing infill, and Mr. Harper, wherever he is, I appreciate the urgency that you always bring to the table. And I think the intent of this is to put more housing in more places, so I'm definitely on board with that. I also have thought a lot about this too, and I agree with a lot of Councilwoman Ryder's sentiments that there are too many differences between requirements for single-family homes that are not there but do get layered onto duplexes. And I also agree with Councilwoman Roberto's amendment in the sense that I think principal use standards for new builds and conversions makes sense. So I think all of that's good. I had a question looking at this about the existing location requirements, and one of them, these have been in the 1 year, Director Brooks, these have been in the previous 1 year plan for the past, how many years?
1983.
1983. But some of these requirements, I think, were exited as part of recode, like this site is part of a planned residential development. We lost that in recode, right?
That's correct. We no longer have a zone called planned residential.
Right. So we've had these even since losing that. We've had these in the 1 year plan even since losing that feature that
Yes.
Councilman Roberto reminds us of every 6 months, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, but I'm just curious generally why Planning Commission or staff didn't address these location requirements individually as opposed to just saying, let's just remove them holistically?
Are you asking, after we adopted the new code, why did we didn't go through and?
Or even as part of this one-year plan there, I think there's 7 or 8 location requirements. Why there wasn't kind of a scalpel approach to, we'll keep that one, we'll remove this one, we'll amend this one. It seems like we've taken all of the location requirements and saying, let's remove all of those. I'm just curious why
Staff did evaluate each individual one.
okay, and thought that each one needs to be removed.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thank you. That was just kind of a strategic question about the process for that. And just to close my time, Mr. Harper, we do spend time going back to listen to, where are you? He's gone. I know a lot of council members take a lot of time and effort and hard work to look at planning commission meetings. And as part of those, I heard Councilwoman Malone's comment about putting all the cards on the table, and I appreciated that. And I think in this scenario, those cards can lie on the location criteria or the principal use table. And I think that both of those make sense to amend the recommendation by planning. So I think this is a good amendment, and I think given all the discussion tonight, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. Some of what I wanted to say has already been covered. My experience working with folks or hearing at least feedback from folks who tried to go through the conversion process was exactly what we've heard is it's cost prohibitive and the requirements just make it unfeasible. And so for me, I do feel like we are, I would want us to treat the affordable housing crisis with the urgency it needs by focusing on true affordable housing. That's my priority. But outside of that, I do feel like we are moving with urgency because we are completely operating outside of our processes. We're approving zoning changes, multiple zoning changes to increase density every city council meeting. We're not following our plan. We're pretty much redoing recode to add density where it was not in the plan adopted. And what I would like is a more comprehensive, I'm glad that there's talk finally of updating our comprehensive plans, because I believe that's where we're at in order to get the development we need and to bring the public into a process that gives them voice into what's happening in their communities. So I already feel uncomfortable with the way we're moving forward to increase our affordable housing stock, but I feel like we can't just do the normal. And when I think of design standards, I'm not an expert, and I don't even know what they all entail, but one thing that stands out to me as we've discussed these new developments is that discussion of, to some degree, scale, to some degree, how does this development fit into the community? And what concerns me are some of our communities, like I've seen it in South Knoxville already, where you have these small working class homes that you might consider are naturally occurring affordable housing that's provided that workforce housing. And then as we open up what developments are possible on these properties, now we're seeing, duplexes built with each side sold at $600,000 each. That's not the vision of affordable housing that I had. I worry about the impact of these developments on those properties that are there. How will those properties that are there remain affordable will those properties be able to be inherited by those children of the current owners? Will they be able to afford the taxes on that property in the future? I'm worried about these issues, and I feel like we're making a lot of changes without spending some time doing the analysis and evaluating how these new policies have impacted. Are we achieving the intended outcomes that we hope for? So I just wanted to say that because I do appreciate the comments, and I want us to constantly be reminded of the urgency that we're in. But I also want us to be committed to adopting plans that will move us closer to the goal that we actually have for our city.
Thank you. Councilmember McKenzie?
Thank you, Mayor. So I agree the need for housing in our city is great, but I don't want to negate the opinions of the people who have invested in home ownership in these communities. We know that with rental properties, that can be a revolving door because a person is not purchasing a duplex. I think that design standards are a must when we're talking about these, putting duplexes or interjecting any different type of housing into established neighborhoods. I think that we should look strategically at these locations, maybe just a little bit more closer. And let's take the time to make sure that we get this right. Because once this body makes a decision, we can't walk it back. And so I think this is some very critical issues that we're talking about. But again, I am definitely in favor of design standards. Thank you.
Councilmember Fugit?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate what Councilwoman McKenzie said about let's not forget the people who've already invested in the community by owning their home there for a while and bought into a neighborhood for the way it is. And I understand things change, but I haven't heard any discussion much about that impact. And I also haven't heard much discussion outside planning staff and the Planning Commission about something this significant for neighborhoods. And that bothers me because I say it a lot. A home is the most significant and largest investment an individual has. And so I'm all for housing, worked on affordable housing before. But I worry that sometimes we, me included, I mean, I'm not casting aspersions, me included, don't fully think through the unintended consequences of some of the things that happen with planning and that we've passed. Oh, that'll never happen. It's too expensive. Well, then home prices go up and it's not too expensive to make that happen. Somebody can buy it and develop it, split lots apart, do all these kind of things. So I'm not making a moral judgment about one or the other, but I think I also don't want us to lose sight of the fact that there are people who this is their largest investment, it's where they've chosen to live, and they are not hard-hearted or selfish or whatever to be concerned about how these changes impact where they've chosen to live. So I just have to say that. So I would have felt better if this came to us with a little more discussion about something that I know was a big topic back during Recode about this very thing. And where things could go. So I'm not sure that I can support this. even with the amendment, because I'm not sure that the neighborhoods have known enough about it.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries 8-1. Next item.
12E is an ordinance to amend the Knoxville City Code Appendix B zoning code, Article 5.3, Table 5-1, Commercial and Office Districts Dimensional Standards to amend minimum interior side, corner side, and rear setbacks in the CN zoning district. R. Bentley Marlowe applicant, all districts.
Motion made to approve and seconded. We have one person signed up to speak in favor of this. Bentley Marlowe, if you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, R. Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas, 37921. I just wanted to urge you all to support this. This has taken 2 years, a long and winding path here, then kicked back to planning, and then kind of lingered in the abyss for a minute or two. And then I untabled it. And since I untabled it, I want to take a moment to commend Michelle Portier, I think is her last name, in planning. She reached out and wanted to sit down and talk about it. And Jesse Hillman was in on that. And over about an hour, hour and a half, and we pulled up and showed them the lot that I was working with when I initially found this issue. And then I showed them several other lots where I identified the same issue. And they then took it upon themselves to do a more comprehensive survey of CN lots throughout the city and came to the conclusion that I was onto something, and it was not just limited to Mechanicsville and the lots I was dealing with. And out of that collaboration, I think we have a very solid and strong amendment to our zoning code, and I urge you all to support it. I'd like to point out that it passed Planning Commission on consent, which is a first for me. So, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes people signed up to speak to item 12E. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
F is an ordinance approving the request of Daniel Levy for a South City Sector Plan amendment from low-density residential mixed-use special district, potential addition to the South Waterfront District to South Waterfront Mixed-Use District Type 2 for property located at 2201, 2209, 2215 Ashley Street, and 0 Carmichael Street, leaving any special purpose land use classifications unchanged. First District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12G is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 2201, 2209, and 2215 Ashley Street and 0 Carmichael Street from IG General Industrial to IMU Industrial Mixed Use, leaving all special purpose and overlay districts unchanged. Daniel Levy applicant, First District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12H was postponed earlier in the meeting. 12I is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 413 East Inskip Drive from RN1 District to O District. Julio Herrera applicant, 5th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Ordinances J and K were approved on consent.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to public forum. Several people have signed up to speak. The first is Alara Montgomery. Ms. Montgomery, are you present?
How many speakers do we have?
9 signed up to speak. I think many of them are not present, though, so I'll just keep calling until someone is here, unless you want to handle it some other way.
Well, if all 9 are here, I think I'd like to make a motion to let them speak the full length.
Second?
Since we won't
Okay.
meet for 2 weeks, we'll just let everybody speak
Okay.
the full 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Motion has been made to let all the people signed up for public forum to speak for the reasons he just said. It's been made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Oh, question, sorry, Councilmember Fugit? Okay. Okay. We'll move on to the next person. Jackson Rivers, are you present? Okay. Tessa Hawthorne, are you present? Milo Sinclair. Milo Sinclair. Zora Bennett. Elias Quinn. Vice Mayor Smith?
You've been April Fooled.
Oh.
I just wanted to let you know.
That's a real list for you.
Can we strike that, can we strike that from the record?
Okay, I was wondering.
Is the camera still rolling, please?
You got me.
Take a picture.
Here's
Okay.
the list, Mayor.
The real list, okay.
I thought but the names, are those like, Sandy Beach or anything, like? All right, good one. You got me. I should have known when you wouldn't give me the public forum. Okay, we'll see if the people on the actual list are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is this legit?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. B minor? Okay. Rick O'Shea? Barb Dwyer? Al dente? Autograph? And Crispy Bacon. Crispy Bacon? Is Crispy Bacon here? Okay, well.
Believe it or not, Crispy Bacon is the name of my sister's pig.
All right.
Let them speak. Let them speak.
Nobody signed.
Nobody said, okay, well, good one. You guys got me. Good. May all of our public forums end with some laughter. Thank you, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned.